Namaste. I pray for you. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, translated by James Haughton Woods. And let's hope I can do as well with 35. Experience is a presented idea which fails to distinguish the sattva and the self, which are absolutely uncommingled. Since the sattva exists as an object for another, the knowledge of the self arises as the result of the constraint upon which exists for its own sake. The rajas and tamas, which are equally dependent upon the sattva, are so called. And the comment: mastered means overwhelmed. He states that there is no commingling in the words therefore even. The word cha here is in the sense of even, contrary in quality, not merely to the rajas and tamas, but even to the sattva. This is the meaning. The word mutable indicates the quality contrary to the self, who is immutable. The presented idea, which fails to distinguish because the thinking substance, which is serene and cruel and infatuated, take the image of the intelligence, Chaitanya, and so the serene and other forms are falsely attributed to the intelligence, just as the trembling of the clear water which reflects the moon is falsely attributed to the moon. He gives the reason for the experience in the words, because the self has objects shown to it. This has been explained more than once. If it be objected that the sattva of the thinking substance might be different from the self, but that experience could not be different from the self, he replies, this same. Now, I interviewed a guy, I'm talking about something that's on the channel in the questions section, and this guy was a follower of a guy who, he had a dream that he saw himself in the middle of the world, that in a way that would remind a normal person of a children's pop-up book. Oh yeah, we used to have those when I was a kid. You open it up and the picture pops up, and so he thought, the concave earth. I created the concave earth. It's like, well, you're not the experience. These things you're experiencing aren't, it was in my mind, so I must have created, no. And all these people saying that I can create it with my mind, you just think it until it's the reality. It's like, no. Truth is truth, and facts are facts. It's not, you assume something's fact. You just tell yourself that something is a fact until it becomes a fact. That's called schizophrenia. This same presented idea of experience is a presented idea of a kind of experience belonging to the sattva, hence is something for the sake of another experience, is an object for sight. For the sattva is for the sake of another, and that it is a combination of parts. And because experience is an external aspect of the sattva, it would also be for the sake of another. Furthermore, that other for whose sake it is would be the experiencer. His is the experience. Our another explanation. For experience, boga, is passing through anubhava, pleasure or pain, which are felt to be coactive or counteractive. And this experience cannot be coactive or counteractive to itself, because a fluctuation cannot be opposed to itself. Therefore, experience must be for the sake of something that is to be made coactive or counteractive. This experiencer is the self. Experience is an object for sight to him. But that presented idea, which is distinguished from this, which is for the sake of another, these words from the comment are explained by supplying the other words in the ablative case, for the sake of another. An objector says, this may be true, but if the insight has the self for its object, then, woo, sir! The self becomes the object for insight by the insight. There would surely be other insights after one one after the other, and we should not fall into an infinite regress. Like ancient aliens. If you're saying there are no gods, but aliens did it, then that doesn't really answer anything in the long term. That just takes it further back and further back and further back. Oh, maybe 5,000 years ago was humans, or whatever date you're putting on it. But then you're trying to say, well, aliens came in and changed what's here. And it's like, well, I'm not so picky. Previous subspecies, previous races than those that exist right now. I would be fine with saying that the earlier beings were humans. In reply to this, he says the self is not, by that presented idea of the self, the connexion of ideas is this: the intellect chitta illuminates that which is inert, jadda, and that which is inert does not illuminate the intellect. The idea presented to the self has as its essence that which is not intelligent. How can this presented idea illuminate a being whose intelligence is intelligent, whose essence is intelligence? On the other hand, how can the self, whose essence is intelligence, and whose brightness does not depend upon another, be properly said to illuminate that which is inert? When he says, whose essence is the sattva of the thinking substance, he describes the inertness insofar as there is identity with the non-intelligent form. We say that the sattva of the thinking substance depends on the self to the extent that it depends on the image of the self as entered into the sattva of the thinking substance, in the same sense that a person depends upon his face reflected in a mirror if he wished to see himself, and the sattva is said to depend upon the self, but not as the objector said, because the sattva of the thinking substance illumines the self. It is the sattva of the thinking substance which reflects the self united with his presented idea, and which depends upon the intelligence, chaitanya, which has been mirrored, chayapanna, in it, as the intelligence of the self. Thus it exists for the sake of the self. On the same point, he quotes the sacred word by saying, for in this sense it has been said by the Echvara, the discerner, meaning is that he is discerned by no one. Now, there's ultimate Echvara, just like we say Lord and Lord with an uppercase L, although that isn't the best of examples. God with a lowercase g as something that's called God, and uppercase G as a real God. But that's not it too, because they're kind of being sarcastic with God. Well, love is loving as an uppercase L, and loving is, no, that's not it. But we're referring human, divine. Anyways, 36. As a result of this constraint upon that which exists for its own sake, there arises vividness, and the organ of supernal hearing, and the organ of supernal feeling, and the organ of supernal sight, and the organ of supernal taste, and the organ of supernal smell. As a result of vividness, there arises an intuitive knowledge of the subtle or concealed or remote, whether past or future. As a result of the organ of supernal hearing, one hears supernal sounds. As a result of the organ of supernal feeling, one has access to supernal touch. As a result of the organ of supernal sight, one has the consciousness of supernal color. As a result of the organ of supernal taste, one has the consciousness of supernal flavor. As a result of the organ of supernal smell, one has intuitive knowledge of supernal fragrance. These unceasingly arise. Now, okay, I've had these experiences in the spiritual sense, but the sensual sense, the psychic sense of the hypersensitivity, painful hypersensitivity is talked about, and that's usually what you're going to try to do, what people would do themselves through chemicals, or they'd overwhelm their system in another way where you can possibly die or damage your sense to be happy and that sort of thing. But you get to the point, this hypersensitivity can also be accompanied. It's like, I picked up this board and this feels really good. You're going to have that with your sense and your sight, that there can be accents to that sort of thing. It's not that you're separated from reality. It's like you got reality, but you got reality plus. You could be seeing auras. There could be other things associated with it. But something most commonly associated with these, for me anyways, is this: the board. The board loves me. And the chair. It's inanimate. That's still there, but it feels like the board and the floor and even the inanimate things in the room just love you. And it's like, I can, not necessarily agreeing with drug abuse or anything like that, or even ritual drug use. Not necessarily agreeing with that. But I can understand why people resort to drugs in this case, because it's like, woo, if you haven't experienced it, that's like, I think I have a video in the Gregorian Verum like rituals. Do I have a video where I experience that sort of where I'm relating my experience afterwards, sitting on the floor over there? The restraint, moreover, upon that which exists for its own sake continues until the primary cause has fulfilled its particular case, karya, the intuitive knowledge of the self. He describes all the supernormal powers which the yogin receives before that intuitive knowledge comes. As a result of this, there arises vividness, and the organ of hearing, and the organ of feeling, and the organ of sight, and the organ of taste, and the organ of smell. So then, it has been asserted that the central organ and the organ of hearing, and of feeling, and of sight, and of taste, and of smell, which have been helped by the external aspects which arise from yoga, are in each single case, a direct causal relation with the supernal sounds and so forth, with the intuitive knowledge of the vividness, pratibha, the 5 organs of hearing, and so on, which I perceive supernal sounds and so forth, have technical names such as the organ of supernal hearing and the rest. The comment is easy. 37. In concentration, these supernal activities are obstacles in the emergent state. They are perfections. Siddhi. Now, I've personally striven to have and learn the method of how to produce various drug-like highs. But if it's, for itself even, it can get kind of boring. It can take months to experience the feeling that you're looking for. But if it's part of devotion and learning, it's kind of different. And some people can be, there can be hindrance to your development if you're like, I gotta have experience. It's like, well, no, you gotta learn and otherwise develop and get some things done. It's just the icing on the cake. The vividness and so forth, arising in the yogin whose mind stuff is concentrated, are obstacles in that they go counter to the sight, which belongs to this concentrated mind stuff. Vijnana, loosely loosed, whatever comes to consciousness. Okay. A samvid is a perception with little direct relation to the object. Okay. But arising in the yogin whose mind stuff is emergent, they are perfections. Occasionally, a man, after beginning constraint upon the self as object, acquires those perfections which are subsidiary to this, and thinks because of the power, prabhava, of these perfections, that he has effected his purpose, and so might cease the constraint. So the author says, 37, in concentration, these supernal activities are obstacles in the emergent state. They are perfections, siddha. For a man whose mind stuff is emergent thinks highly of these perfections, just as a man born in misery considers even a small bit of wealth a pile of wealth. But a yogin whose mind stuff is concentrated must avoid these perfections even when brought near to him. One who longs for the final goal of life, the absolute assuagement of the threefold anguish, how could he have any affection for those perfections which go counter to the attainment of that goal? This is the meaning both of the sutra and of the comment. 38. As a result of slackening the causes of bondage, and as a result of the concentration of the procedure of the mind stuff penetrates into the body of another. By virtue of the latent deposit of karma in the body, the central organ, which is changeable and unstable, becomes established. This is bondage. By virtue of concentration, there is a slackening of this karma, which is the cause of bondage. And the consciousness of the procedure of the mind stuff comes only from the concentration. As a result of the dwindling of the bondage of karma, and as a result of the consciousness of the procedure of his mind stuff, the yogin, by withdrawing mind stuff from his own body, deposits it in other bodies. The organs also fly after. Book 254. The mind stuff thus deposited, just as, for instance, when the king bee flies up, the bees fly up after him. So the organs follow after the mind stuff and its penetration into the body of another. After thus stating that power in the form of intuitive knowledge, extending as far as to the sight of the self, is the result of constraint, he gives as another result of constraint power in the form of action. 38. As a result of slackening the causes of bondage, and as a result of the consequence, as a result of the consciousness of the procedure, the mind stuff penetrates into the body of another. When he says by virtue of concentration, this means under the power of the constraint whose object is the cause of bondage. The word concentration is used instead of constraint because it is predominant in constraint. A procedure is that by which something produces into another thing. It means the tubes, nadi, that is the paths of the coming and going of mind stuff. As a result of constraint upon this passage, there is a consciousness of it. And as a result of this, as well as of the constraint upon the causes of bondage, since the causes of bondage are slackened, it, the mind stuff, is not held back by this yogin, although the mind stuff is not held back as it soars into the upward path. It cannot, without impediment, pass forth from his body, nor enter into the other's body. Therefore the passage for this must also be known. The organs, moreover, follow the mind stuff and settle down in their respective places in the other's body. And so 39, as a result of subjugating the udana, there is no adhesion to water or mud or thorns or similar objects, and at death, the upward flight. The fluctuation of the whole complex of organs, which is distinguished by having the different vital forces. Prana is vitality. Its activity is fivefold. Prana has its course, through the mouth and the nose, and its fluctuation extends as far as the heart. And samana, since it distributes equally, has its fluctuations from the navel. Apana, since it leads down, has its fluctuations as far as the sole of the foot. Udana, since it leads up, has its fluctuation as far as the head. Vyana is pervading. Among these prana is predominant. As a result of subjugating the udana, there is no adhesion to water or mud or thorns or similar objects. At the time of decease, there is the upward flight. This upward flight he attains by mastery of the udana. (39) As a result of subjugating the udana, there is no adhesion to water or mud or thorns or similar objects, and the upward flight. The fluctuation of the whole complex of organs is life. The words distinguish by having the different vital forces, prana, refer to that fluctuation, in which the different vital forces are the distinction. The organs have two kinds of fluctuations, an inner and an outer. The outer is distinguished by the external sense, alochana, of color, and similar sensations. The inner is life, for this is a special kind of effort, and it leads to the different activities of the winds, maruta, which the body comprehends. This effort is common to all the organs, as they say. The fluctuations common to the inner organs are the five winds, vayu, vital airs, and so on, because they are the distinction characteristic of this life. The action or function of this effort is of five kinds. Prana extends from the tip of the nose to the heart. Samana is one which evenly distributes as required in different places the various juices which are mutations of the food eaten and drunk, and its locality extends from the heart and to the navel. Apana is that which leads to the carrying off of urine, facies, fuetus, etc. And its activity, verte, is from the navel into the sole of the foot. I'm not sure how that connection would work, but udana is so called because it leads up to, that is, leads upwards, such things as secretions, and its activity is from the tip of the nose and to the head. Yana is one that pervades the whole body. Of these described, prana is predominant, since the sacred word declares that when that goes forth, all goes forth. Following the prana, when it goes forth, all the vital forces, prana, go forth. Having thus explained the difference between the vital forces, prana, with respect to activity and locality, he leads up to the meaning of the sutra with the words, as a result of subjugating the udana. When constraint has been performed upon the udana, then as a result of the subjugation, the yogin is not held back by water or similar objects, and at the time of decease, his upward flight is by the path, which commences with the flame. As a result of this constraint, he attains mastery to this upward flight. These supernormal powers that result from constraints upon the vital forces, beginning with prana, if there be success in it, should be understood according to the differences in the subjugations of the activities and of the localities in the body. Now, we now know that it can be bad for the environment to burn the bodies. A lot of resources to burn that aren't necessary, and just put it in the ground. And if you don't poison the body, you're not harming the ground either. But if you're poisoning the body, you're putting poison out there, up, down, whatever. It's not just like putting bodies on mountaintops and letting the birds pick them apart. That can spread some diseases that the person didn't even exhibit. 40. As a result of subjugating the samana, there arises a radiance. The yogin who has subjugated the samana by causing a pulsation of the flames becomes radiant. 40. As a result of subjugating the samana, a radiance. There is a pulsation, a flaming forth of the body, a flaming forth of the flame in the body. Okay, well, there's the inner light that you ignite, or a teacher hands off a inner light, a light of some sort. 41. As a result of constraint upon the relation between the organ of hearing and the air, akacha, there arises the supernal organ of hearing. For all organs of hearing, the air is the physical basis, and for all sounds, in which sense it has been said, all, those whose process of hearing, shravana, are in the same place, have the same kind of hearing, eka krutitvam, and this fact, that the air is the locus of sounds, is declared to be the first characteristic mark of air, and the second is that it is not covered by anything more extensive. And thus, because a thing which is not limited in extent, amrta, is evidently not covered by anything, it is also recognized that air is all pervasive, for that the perception of sounds, it is inferred that the organ of hearing exists. For in case of a deaf man, and of a man not deaf, the one perceives sound and the other not. Hence, it is the organ of hearing only which is the field of operation for sound. For the yogin who has performed constraint upon the relation between the organ of hearing and the air, the supernal ear begins. It has already been stated, Book 336, well, the first one of this video, right? Page 246. In some other edition, that as a result of constraint upon that which exists for its own sake, this world would be the mukhya. There remains a subsidiary perfection, the organ of supernal hearing and other organs. Now the organ of supernal hearing and other organs result from the constraint which has the organ of supernal hearing and other organs as its sole purpose. 41. As a result of constraint upon the relation between the organ of hearing and the air, the supernal organ of hearing. He says that the object of the constraint is the relation between the organ of hearing and the air in the relation of the contained to the container. In the words, for all organs of hearing, although made of the personality substance, have the air which is contained in the hollow space of the auditory canal as its physical basis. The organ of hearing has its seat, a yatana, there. For if we assist or injure this auditory canal, we find that the organ of hearing has been assisted or injured. Air, also the physical basis for sounds, which are causes cooperating with the organ of hearing. When a sound is to be heard as coming from an earthen or other substance, the organ of hearing, which is in the hollow of the auditory canal, presupposes that there is a special sound residing in the air, nabas, which is its own, that is, the organ substance. That this is so is clear from analogy. Thus, when, for instance, one wishes to have an external sense, alochana, of smell, which is contained in this case, in earth, by means of the organ of smell, which is a cooperating, non-material cause for those things which have smell and taste as their specific qualities. We similarly find that the sense of smell requires such a special kind of smell insofar as it is contained in the earthen thing which contains it. So the word anavaranam in the sense, said to be free space. Avatacha. And it has already been said that the organs of smell and of taste and of touch and of sight and of hearing, although made of the personality substance, do have the elements as their locus. For if we assist or injure the elements, we find that we have assisted or injured the organ of smell or of some other of the organs. This same organ of hearing, which is made of the personality substance, moreover resembles a piece of iron in that which is attracted by a magnet-like sound in the mouth, produced by the mouth of the speaker, and by succession of its own fluctuations, verte, has the external sense of the word which has come to the mouth of the speaker. Hence, there are sense presentations of sounds fluctuating at different points of space, and this sense presentation, common to all living beings, cannot, in the absence of inhibition, be counted as an invalid source of ideas. In this sense, there is an utterance by panchaka, all those whose process of hearing, travana, are in the same place, have the same kind of hearing. These persons whose process of hearing are in the same place are those persons, like Chaitra, whose organs of hearing are of that kind. The meaning is that the processes of hearing of all are in the air, akacha. The air, moreover, the locus of the organs of hearing, because it is produced from the fine element, tanmatra, whose specific quality is sound, has sound as its specific quality, but which sound, as a